Our next speaker is going to be Jesse Buxton. I know I've gotten a variety of questions related to who's doing this role now and what does it mean. And so I've asked Jesse to come and spend about 15 or 20 minutes kind of giving a broad overview, introducing himself and his background, what he understands his role to be, which is kind of a work in progress right now. And then I'd like to have some questions that kind of part of a meet and greet as to what you were hoping he would be doing, and is that part of his role? And any questions that you might have. So if you could speak from here so our Zoom participants can see you.
Okay. Well, thank you everybody for the opportunity to come and introduce myself, or reintroduce myself in some cases, I guess. My name is Jesse Buxton. I've been with the university since 2003. Started.
We cloned him already.
Started in the what was then the extension business office as a student employee, and then transitioned to being a full-time accountant with business operations. Was there really through the service center transition, where at that point a few years ago I kind of was moved off of extension work for the most part and moved into academic units with on campus. But I'm glad to be back working for Extension. I'm glad to be back with all of you guys where I started, so happy to be here. Just a little bit more about me. I grew up in Coshocton County, not too far away, so for those of you in the Northeast region, I'm right with you. I'm working out of the OARDC Worcester administration office now. I moved back to Coshocton just last year, and we had a sister office in Worcester with business operations, so they had an extra space for me, and it made more sense for me to commute there than to Columbus. So, but it offered a good transition into this new position. Just in my spare time right now, spending most of that being entertained and entertaining my 11-month-old daughter. So, and enjoying all that comes with that, well, most that comes with that. So, and so this position kind of came about because Cindy Buxton, who'd been here for several years, left the university last spring to take a new opportunity at Denison in Granville. And with that kind of left a big void in the business operations, and a lot of the stuff that she was doing for Extension that kind of transitioned from the old Extension business office into the service center model left unfilled. So I think with just the timing of that, with the transitions going on in Extension, it made sense to create a position that would be more focused on Extension, that was kind of lost when the business operations transitioned to that service center model, and we were kind of stretched beyond Extension and into the college. And so one thing that was recognized was that Extension really didn't have a fiscal officer, which every other department within the college really does. Now what that means is that this fiscal officer position is a little different than some of those other positions, just because of the nature of the organization of Extension. But the hope is that this position will be that liaison between CFAS finance and business operations and down to the county level. So this the title of my job is County Fiscal Officer. And honestly, it's still a work in progress. Like Roger mentioned, the operations team is kind of where this job will be housed under. So until that team is developed and more focus is brought in from there as to what the specific duties will be for this job, I'm still kind of in limbo. Transitioning out of business operations work right now. We've moved a couple of the units that I had away to some new hires that we have there now. So over the next few months, we'll be slowly moving my transactional work away, and I'll get to focus more time on the duties of this job. So more about what the idea for the duties of this job would be. Reports and analysis to Extension Administration, which Cindy and Brian had been doing a lot of. So this is kind of the high level big picture stuff. Reports to Roger about county fund balances and doing cleanup on those things. assisting counties with budget and analysis. I know I may have talked to a couple of you in this region already, or regions on Zoom, working on budget planning for next year. We have some tools for that, and that was something that Brian was helping out a lot with, and he's been forwarding those emails to me to assist with over the last couple of months. I will be the idea is to be a backup approver for a lot of the transactions that are going through eRequest and eTravel now. Now, with that being said, the university is moving to a new financial system. They're saying in the beginning of fiscal year 2019 called Workday. So that will replace a lot of the systems that we have now. eRequest, eTravel will all be integrated within that system somehow. Still a lot to come from that. They're in the kind of architect phase of that system. But that will be part of my job, is to train all of you on how that new system works, and what your roles within that system will be, and being a backup approver for the area leaders, or however that approval structure for actually having those transactions approved in the system will work out. Another big part of this role will be doing the county visits again, like Cindy Buxton used to do. I know when she had first started with Extension, her goal was to get to everybody within about 4 years. I'm hoping that since this job will have a little more focus on that, I'll be able to move that up a little bit, maybe get to everybody within about 2 years or less. Just kind of depends on how everything all shakes out. But I really have the full intention of coming out to every office, getting to know the staff, and just making sure that everybody's on the same page as far as what our audit requirements are, and policies and procedures, and really kind of looking to just create efficiencies and consistency among all the offices, so that for staff turnover, transition, et cetera, it's going to be a lot easier to keep those things moving consistently as people move in and out of the organization. So, and with that, kind of the onboarding for new hires, I really hope to use the Zoom tool quite a bit, as well as if needed, come out to do in-person training, onboarding for people. I think that's one of the areas that has been lacking extremely over the last few years, is there just hasn't been a person to go to get that information and to get that training for new staff, and hopefully that'll be something that I can fill. So I'll be working closely with the county staff, CEDs or area leaders, and then business operations center. So this position won't be part of the business office anymore, but within Extension administration. But the plan is that I would work real close with the accountants in business operations, and kind of be that liaison between the staff and the accountants, to work through any issues with processing, questions about policies, procedures, et cetera, and hopefully streamline those a little bit. So broadly, kind of facilitating efficiency and consistency for county fiscal operations, and communicate and train on policy decisions, and then a few other administrative duties. The job posting had duty descriptions of about 2 pages long, so it's kind of like throw something at it and see what sticks, I guess. So over the next 6 months to a year, we'll really hone in on what this position is going to do, and what developing the priorities from the operations team, and then hopefully with a lot of feedback from you all about what would be helpful for you to alleviate some of the administrative burden, or what things do you just feel like you need the most help with to spend more time doing what you want to do with your education responsibilities. So again, this transition is very much a work in progress, and the feedback is obviously really important. So
Before we
Yeah.
Are you ready for questions?
Yes, I'm ready for questions.
Before we get into questions, just real quickly, a couple of things that we're exciting about. Well, there's a lot that's exciting about having Jesse, so if we could welcome him. But one of the things that I thought was really exciting about it is when Eric Bodie in the college decided to hire this position to kind of help us with what the best of what we loved Cindy for, to have that kind of dedicated service, there was a recognition that Extension does have so many things that are individual and unique, and that we need to be paying attention to those proactively. And so, and that's why his position has been hired by the college, but to be placed and focused with Extension. So that's very exciting for us. And some of the things that I had the opportunity to talk to Eric a little bit about what would be the prioritization of some of the things in this 2-page description of his job that made most sense for not throwing him into an ocean, but also helping us with those things that made the most sense to us right now. And so we had the opportunity to solicit, what we did is we asked some of our fiscal folks at the region and some of our county directors as to what are the things that we most need from Jesse right now. And we were able to identify some of the things that he just spoke of. And so one of the things that I'm really excited about is the ability to be proactive as it relates to the budget, the dedicated training that's going to be able to happen in a very proactive way, especially what you're doing with our new office associates that have fiscal responsibilities, for instance, and that onboarding, which has always kind of been happenstance. And then clearly ongoing training and support for the county leaders in whatever way, shape, or form those come. And then the other thing I was excited about, I don't know if you know this, but it's 2 things. One I'm hoping you'll come through on, and the other one we can talk about. But well, 3. One is the audit. So when he says coming out to the counties, part of that's relationship building and understanding of what you guys have and how you're working. The other part is we've asked him a lot of times when we have a new county director to do kind of a baseline audit to make sure you're coming into something that's sound. So we have a couple of those on your agenda. I know that you're going to be doing that for our region and for some of the other regions. But the job aids, he gets excited about job aids, like yay, right? And so those flow charts, those decision-making trees, those training pieces that are just really quick, those are going to be some of the things that you're going to be able to see from him as well. And then here's the part that I really would love, but I don't know if you can do. I've talked to Eric about this too. I would love to see kind of a dashboard. I'm just putting you on the spot on Zoom in front of everybody. But a dashboard or like a crystal report that we can pull from right now, e-requests and PeopleSoft, but eventually Workday, to help quick decision-making as it relates to finances within the county offices, because we know that you're not all accountants. None of you are, well, maybe a couple of you are accountants. So we're excited about things like that. So that's what we are hoping that, Jesse will be able to bring to us. Please take a few minutes and ask him additional questions, thoughts, or comments related to his position. We'll give him a chance to answer in the next 9 minutes, and then we'll save him from the masses. So go ahead.
I still have a question about, a lot of times when they help the county anyway, we have challenges with communicating or knowing when to communicate, what to communicate. So Lisa Murphy, OSP, I think it's called the business office now. So will you be able to help us navigate those 3 entities?
Yes. So right now there's a lot of disjointed relationships going on between, we have currently three county accountants that are separated across the state, not necessarily by region. Lisa kind of handles the larger county units, the urban county units and metro areas. Then Aaron Swinger and Robin Gates kind of take the other 2 halves of the state. So beyond just having 3 different accountants that have, different experience levels and, just idiosyncrasies that the way they do their work, then we have our, office-sponsored programs on a high level, which is separate from the rest of our funding sources, and they have their own separate. It's part of our financial system, but a separate hierarchy, separate approval level, all those sorts of things. So yes, to be able to navigate those is difficult, and that's something that I would like to help with. So whenever you have those questions about, where does this piece of paperwork need to go? What paperwork do I need to have? Thankfully, my experience from the business office has given me a lot of that information, and hopefully can work between you and those accountants in the business operations to, you know, make that happen faster and more efficiently. So whenever you have questions like that, yes, feel free to call, email me. I don't have business cards to hand out right now because I'm still up in the air as to where I'm going to land as far as, you know, office space and phone number and all that stuff. But, you know, all my contact information is still on the business operations website. I think I need to get myself on the admin website somewhere. But, yeah.
Nice and loud, please.
Nice one. So I have one big question. I'm assuming you're going to work with the operations person on this. Because we own our own building, because we're in a city that requires, and a lot of us are, we had our city of Canfield vendor, they had canceled as a vendor, so we couldn't pay our water bill a couple years ago because nobody else was using it. We spent 120 days, and it's going to be 150 before it's done, on little Dollar General phones because there's not one point of contact on the university side. So I'm encouraging and hoping we can get one person in purchasing that can understand us. We had we had the same contract we had for the last 3 rounds with Armstrong, and a different purchaser/lawyer looked at that contract each time. So we had to keep going back and saying, well, you crossed out 36 months. So there's and then we really needed that to get the discount we were looking for. So is that a possibility, do you think? You know, what are those contacts? How do you make our lives easier without us complicating your job?
Sure. Yeah, with purchasing, accounts payable, you know, their struggles are similar to some of ours in the sense that, you know, you have turnover in positions and new people filling positions that don't know the history or don't, know who they're working for necessarily. And there are certain things that they say they won't budge on, but if you push back a little bit harder, they will budge on. And then sometimes they don't though. So that's the problem. But yes, I think that, I would like to be that liaison between, you know, the business operations and purchasing, trying to, I can't do the accountant's job in business operations, obviously. So, but if I'm aware of situations, then I can follow up on situations and try to, you know, get things like this to happen faster or more efficiently. Yes, and I think that as far as working with purchasing, you know, with the grants and contracts team, Angela Master, Terry Snoddy, and working with Brian, I think that, you know, identifying some people as go-tos for those situations is important. And I have some people in mind, but yeah.
On that, the same question. Grants and contracts team, what contracts do you get versus Angie? You know that?
So for now, it sounds like I'm going to be mostly out of the contracts business, except for possibly office leases. So for those of you that have leases that go through planning and real estate, because that's a separate process from other contracts that would go through legal affairs or purchasing and kind of a one-off situation for extension. I may be handling those, but there's basically two types of contracts. There's the contracts where we're either buying something or you know, say library, you know, use for a meeting. They have a $0 contract. You know, we might have been paying them something. So those types of contracts go through purchasing, go through e-request. And there's the other contracts where we're doing service for somebody else, and you have a memorandum of understanding or something like that. Those are the ones that go through Angie and legal affairs. For now, Angie's still going to handle those contracts.
But the goal is for the operations team to also be the liaison for those groups like PAIR and legal, right? And so if it's not something that Jesse specifically does, there's going to be a liaison through the operations team to kind of facilitate some of that, including hopefully decision-making trees where you know when to even send it to somebody at the state versus save yourself that, because it's not actually a contract. A lot of things that we're sending forward aren't even really contracts. And so those are some of the other pieces that will go into that fuller operations discussion.
Mm-hmm.
We have time for 2 more questions. Jackie, and then I want to, well, I'll say 2. I'm going to say Jackie here, and then we're going to open it up to Northwest if they're still here.
Hi, Jesse, welcome.
Thank you.
Nice and loud, please.
Preferred vendors, if you are our liaison between county operations and Columbus, preferred vendors, I think everyone would agree, are a pain in the tuchus. And they are. So, for example, when our office moved, we had to get 3 preferred vendors. At least 2 of them were from Columbus. That does not fly with our county commissioners when we're using people from Columbus or have a sign made when there are plenty of sign people in our county. It is burdensome to us because it unnecessarily requires time. I understand the idea of benefiting the university. We see no benefit. We see no benefit whatsoever. We see no benefit. So I don't know if anybody else wants to jump on that wagon, but preferred vendors, I get it when we're using staples. I get that kind of stuff. But when it comes to those more specialized operations that we could fulfill in the county easily, ask us to get 3 bids from the county or the area, but not from Columbus.
Yeah, that's been a struggle for many years, obviously. Since that first key contract went into place with OfficeMax a few years ago, and we said, all right, all office supplies, you can't use your local vendor anymore, have to go through e-stores and OfficeMax. And there are, with some of these contracts and preferred vendors, we can work around a little bit, but other ones, the university has strictly said this is a key contract, they are a sole supplier, everybody has to use them. Other contracts, so other e-stores vendors or contracted suppliers that may not be in e-stores, the idea is that yes, they're going to provide the best product and the best service, but that obviously doesn't always happen. We should always look at them first, get quotes from them, but using a local supplier for some of those commodities that aren't restricted or aren't on these sole contracts, you certainly can. Part of the issue, though, is that even though it may not be a sole contract, OSU Purchasing, who's the gatekeeper of the vendor maintenance, our vendor database, where we have to have a vendor ID in place to have a purchase order done for somebody, they will deny a request for a new vendor or reactivating an old vendor that they've inactivated if somebody that we have a contract with, whether it be key or not, can supply that. But we have other purchasing options available other than purchase order. So, vendors that take credit cards, if it's an allowable purchase out of your local checking accounts, et cetera. So by all means, when those situations come up, talk to us, talk to me. We may be able to work out other ideas, but there are some of them where that's just unfortunately the way it's going to have to be until somebody can talk some sense into
just being proactive on that, so you don't have the purchase you want to make on Friday and you're calling him on Wednesday.
Right.
Do we have any questions from Northwest or Central? I think just Northwest is with us now. Do we have any questions from you guys?
No, we don't have any questions, Jesse, but we are really grateful to have you on board, and we're looking forward to working with you. And thank you so much for sharing what you do. As I say, we're just really looking forward to having opportunities to work together.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here. So.
Well, thank you. We'll give Jesse another round.